Welcome to Nausea Reviews. This is Brian, your host. Today, we're going to look at a movie called Ghosts of War. Now, I probably would have never have chosen to watch this movie if it was up to me, because I'm not one for war movies for the most part, but there's a little bit of horror in this one, so might as well give it a shot. My brother suggested this one for me to watch, not for the podcast. He doesn't care about this podcast. When he was telling me about it, I'm like, are they ripping off Overlord? Kind of? Because the similarities are there, but I guess they're not really ripping it off. They're just using the same kind of mindset for a little bit. American troop, paratroopers. I don't know which airborne company they are, or however you say that. As you can tell, I don't know a lot about the military from just that little bit of gobbledygook right there. So in both movies, they're paratroopers, and they have to deal with something horror-like. This one is ghosts. Overlord was like super serum. I know this isn't a review for Overlord, I'm sorry. Warlord is a Nicolas Cage movie. Overlord is better, but I think part of that is, it made it to theaters, and this movie probably wasn't ever going to make it to theaters, even without the pandemic going on. So there's that. There's a couple notable people in this movie, at least notable to me. So let's get into the cast. The most famous person in this movie, which means he's not in this movie very much, because that's how it works, is Billy Zane, who's in a shitload of things. The ones that I'm going to bring up are Titanic, obviously. The Phantom, for sure. That's a pile of shit that you all need to watch. Catherine Zeta-Jones is in it, and so is Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat. Just saying. He's also Billy Zane in Zoolander, and I didn't see Zoolander 2, but apparently he plays Billy Zane in Zoolander 2. Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. He's really fun in that movie. I recommend watching it. It's the best of the 3 Tales of the Crypt movies, in my opinion. And then he's the boyfriend of the daughter in Critters, and out of all of the movies I said so far, Critters is my favorite. Probably tied for worst with Zoolander, but still my favorite. Next guy on the list is Theo Ross, but it's got an I at the end. It's R-O-S-S-I, so it could be Rossi. He plays a character called Kirk. He's one of the group that we're following through this story. And he's Juice from Sons of Anarchy. And the only other thing that I can think of that he's in is that new movie on Netflix called Army of the Dead. It's a Zack Snyder movie. Everything I've seen about that movie says that it's a giant pile of shit that's not worth watching. Mainly Zack Snyder's name's on it. I don't like his movies, for the most part. I like some of them, but it's like 2 out of all of his movies. I just don't like his style and his choice of music and how he implements it. The only other guy that I know from anything is Kyle Gellner, I think is how you say his last name. He plays a character called Tappert in this movie. Once again, one of the company we're following. He's in 3 things I've seen. And that's the fucking super shitty Nightmare on Elm Street remake, where he plays Johnny Depp's character, basically. For the purposes of that story, it's the same kind of character. He's in Jennifer's Body. I saw Jennifer's Body right after it went on DVD, so like a million billion years ago. So I don't remember him at all in there. But then again, I don't remember hardly any of the movie either. It's one of my rewatches that I need to do. And he's in The Haunting in Connecticut, which I remember watching and not liking, which isn't very surprising considering it's a haunting movie. And I don't really tend to like those. I'm very picky with my demonic and ghost movies. Most of them are so stupid to me because there is no rules. I got a problem when a movie sets up rules like the ghosts have to follow these rules, and then in every single movie, the ghost or the demon never ever follows any of those rules. It pisses me off. Don't set up the rules if you're not going to make your ghost follow the rules. Luckily in this movie, they don't set up any fucking rules, so the ghost can do whatever the hell they want, and I'm not allowed to complain about it. I can complain on how bad it looks, but that's about all I'm going to do when it comes to what these entities can do. There are obviously more people in this movie than just those 3, so I'm going to introduce the main company we're following first on this one, and then we'll get into the overview. But before all that, I basically gave you the synopsis. It's a company that goes into a haunted house. They're holding it so the Nazis don't get it. They're in France. It's like this big mansion, and they get haunted. And the ending is really, really strange. It makes sense, but it's also way out there. For the actual review part of this review that I keep forgetting to segue into, I would say that it's pretty cliched. The problem with that statement is once we get to the end of the movie, it kind of excuses how cliched it is. So I don't know how much I can count that against the movie. All the acting seemed pretty good. I think my favorite character was Kyle's character, Tappert. Right before the overview, I'll go over the whole group and their quirks. Because this is one of those movies where the characters aren't only defined by their one characteristic, like most movies are. So it gets points for that. And that ending, I don't love the ending, but I respect the ending and what they were doing here. It's better than nothing, and other people might like the ending. So I'm not holding the ending against it, because the ending wasn't bad. It's just, it's hard for me to explain. I can't explain it here. I can explain it at the end of the overview. So me personally, I think this movie is a little middle of the road. I think a real reviewer, someone that's looking at this movie totally objectively as a movie, the worst part about this movie is the pointless CGI crap that they put in it. The ghosts of this war are stupid looking. I can understand why people would think it was scary, but they're CGI'd most of the time, or they're placed into a scene and it's out of place. Some of the creepier things they do are good, but like when they show the ghosts, it takes you out of the movie a little bit. It might not take some people out of the movie, but I'm so desensitized to jump scares and the normal stuff that they put in movies, haunted movies like this. It doesn't really do a whole lot for me. It might for you if you're one of those people. If you're somebody that jumps at loud noises, you'll be jumping a lot. Most of the time, it doesn't really lead to much. Or when it leads to something, but it cuts away and then we come back to that character after the jump scare instead of it showing us what happened and why, kinda. I liked the movie though. It was, one of the strengths of this movie is, once it gets rolling, it's rolling. The beginning is a march, which could be considered boring. I didn't think it was boring. It's part of the military. That's what happened. You march across the land to get to your next point the best you can. So it wasn't boring. It just world building, if anything else. So I would recommend you to watch this movie. And definitely don't listen to the end where I tell you the ending if you really want to experience this movie the way that it's meant to be experienced. Alright, now I'm gonna go to the overview, so spoilers from now on. You've been warned. So our group of soldiers, our main character guy, is Chris. He follows orders, and he's pretty level-headed for the most part. We have Butchie, I think my least favorite character in this movie, just because he's the macho guy. Like, there's a scene that reminds me of Inglourious Basterds towards the beginning, where they have like the Bear Jew is his nickname. I don't remember his real name. Where he's the tough guy that'll just beat the shit out of a Nazi to prove that he can beat the shit out of a Nazi. That kind of guy is Butchie. He seems like a nice guy, just testosterone guy. And then we got Eugene, who's their kind of like their tech specialist guy. He can fix radios and stuff like that. He's the nerdy guy that doesn't really get along with most of the group, but you can see the camaraderie with all of them. They all give each other shit at certain points in the movie, and it's all good. And our last guy in the group, if I'm remembering properly, is Tappert. This guy is a little unhinged, we'll say. He's not on the up and ups. He's the guy that can get the job done if nobody else wants to get the job done guy. If you catch my drift, you'll learn what I'm talking about literally within a few minutes of the actual overview and not just us talking about the characters. But he is the most unstable of the group, we'll say, out of everyone in the group. And there's a scene where he talks about something that happened in the past later in the movie, and I think that scene alone made me like his character the most. Kyle did a good job with this guy. You can complain about his accent all you want. I don't know how good his accent is. He has one in this movie. But the feeling behind the things that he says, they're pretty good. I think he might be the best person in this whole movie. Not saying that Billy Zane can't outact this kid, but Billy Zane wasn't in this movie long enough to outact this kid, is what I'm getting at. Even though he's a fucking grown-up now, but compared to Billy Zane. Alright, so we start off with a title card thing that lets us know that we're in Nazi-occupied France, 1944. The squad is sleeping in like a round formation. They're not lined up in a line. they're like around a fire. Chris sees a guy in the shadows. He wakes up. It's nighttime. Sees a guy in the shadows. The guy lights a cigarette. You never see his face. And then you hear a gun cocking. And then he disappears. And then Chris wakes up. Kirk has like trench foot or something. His foot's fucking gross. They show it twice. It's the only reason I bring it up here. And he's the guy in the group that tells the stories where you know that it's fake. Lots of people have that friend in friend group. I have one, telling tall tales. That kind of guy. Which I'm sure parts of his stories are true, but not all of his stories are true. It's one of those kind of guys. But then they move out to go to the outpost that they're going to, which is a giant mansion that the Americans seized from the Nazis. So now they have a group there to hold it. And they're relieving the previous group. They see a Nazi Jeep rolling up, and they landmined it. I think they called it an M7. This is where we learn that Tapperd's fucking crazy. He not only loots the bodies, that part's not so crazy, but he's like cutting out golden teeth, and they don't show any desecration past that. It's just the way he does it is so creepy. Later on in the movie, he desecrates some bodies, but we never know how, but he does. It explains later why he's kind of fucked. Billy Zane's one of the officers he survived the explosion in the car flip. Butch wants to fist fight him because he's a tough man. Let's fight. This is where some CGI bullshittery happens. Bad noticeable kind. Butch picks up a brake bar or a crowbar or whatever you want to call it, and one of the guys is being crushed by the Jeep, but he's still alive, and he smashes his head in to show that he's not playing around. I don't know why they couldn't just find a fake head or something and fill it with corn syrup and food coloring, because that would have looked better than this CGI fucking spray paint shit that they did when they caved in his head. The caved in CGI was bad enough. The stupid blood was worse. Done complaining about that. So he gets in a fight with Zane, and Zane is stomping the shit out of him for the most part. Chris realizes that they're late and they went the wrong way, so he just shoots Zane in the head. But Butch was going to lose anyway, so it's a good thing he shot him. They're walking through a field, and out of the forest comes a bunch of, I'm assuming, Jewish refugees. Tap goes up to one lady and her kid and gives Zane's coat to her and the gold teeth he just found, so they have some money. But the teeth make sense. The coat, yeah, it'll keep them warm for now, but as soon as they get caught by anybody, or that coat gets seen, it's an officer's coat, so she would get killed? It doesn't make a lot of sense, and there's no way to, like, change the coat to make it not look like an officer's coat? I know that it was just showing us that Tap's really, really fucked, but he's still technically a good guy. They go through a burned out city and it's CGI gross fires. Just light fires, guys. It's fine. The road didn't have to go that far back. The shot would have looked great if it wasn't shitty CGI. But it was, so it didn't. They finally make it to the mansion, and the previous squad is real quick to want to leave. They're like, hey, we're going. You got 5 minutes. Let's get the fuck out of here. And then there's a little bit of an altercation between the two because the old squad won't tell them why they're freaked out, and the new guys want to know. And the old squad's just like, you're late. We want to get our relief. Let's go. And then it's like, fine, you can go. Now they're exploring the house. It's a bit creepy. It's a creepy mansion. Eugene starts playing the piano, and we see some creepy stuff. It pans to creepy stuff while he's playing the piano. A burned floor, nail marks scratched into the hardwood, dolls in a giant creepy fucking dollhouse. Wouldn't be creepy if it was painted, but it's like a child-sized dollhouse. Giant fucking thing. Tap is in the basement looking around. They find this chest that is brought up a few times, and they finally open it towards the end, and it makes sense with the ending. But some stuff falls behind him. Nothing moved it. It just moved on its own. So this movie's real quick to the stuff. They're not fucking around now that they're at the house. Chris realizes that the burn mark on the floor is from someone sitting in a chair getting burned, and they hear noises. Butch is walking down the hallway, tries to light a cigarette. The match keeps getting blown out. He hears some noises coming from behind a door. He goes to go to it. It's locked. As he walks away, the door opens, and you get to see the shadow of someone in there. And after all that creepiness, now they're all just relaxing, trying to unwind, now that they can actually sleep with a roof under their head and it's warm and everything. They start hearing sounds from upstairs. A door when they're up there looking, a door opens all by itself, which freaks them out a little bit. And the sounds that we're hearing is scratching mark. And they finally get into the room, and all the sound was coming from the nail marks on the floor. And there was when they walk into the room, the window's broken out, and they have a CGI curtain that blows in the wind. And they say they saw something. I didn't see anything. The CGI curtains distracted me because they look so fucking fake. Just get curtains and a fan, and blow wind through the goddamn window and wait until the shot gets good. Fuck your CGI. I fucking hate CGI. Sorry, it looks really bad. Eugene finds a Nazi journal, and then they hear a knocking, and it's in Morse code, and it says, "I have no legs." And a squirrel falls out of the chimney into the fire. A dead squirrel. That breaks the relaxing, and then they're like, "We need to get some sleep. Tap, you go up into the attic and scout. Look out." He's their sniper guy. He's the only one with a rifle with a scope on it. Everybody else has something that looks similar to a Tommy gun. I don't know my weapons very well, so just think Tommy gun without the drum. I'm sure people know what gun that actually is. Kirk is too freaked out to sleep on the kid's bed, that room he took with the dolls and everything. So he sleeps on the floor, the music box starts playing all by itself, and then just like slowly dies out. Eugene's reading the journal by candlelight down in the basement. Candle blows out, he lights it again, and it's an eerie, creepy scene. It doesn't sound like it when I talk about it, but it's supposed to be. Tap is scouting the area with his scope. A figure moves behind him, then he sees a figure through his scope, and he goes past it, comes back, and it's gone. And then it jump scares a kid ghost into his scope, and the door slams where the figure came out of. Tap has to go down, and he's checking it out with a flashlight, and he doesn't see shit. But he does see Chris staring down at him, wondering what the fuck he's doing. Or Chris saw it too. We don't ever know. No one wants to talk about what happened last night. It gets brought up that anybody wants to talk about it, and they're like, fuck that. Eugene tells a story about Tap, and it's a roughin'. Tap is covered in blood. 6 or 7 15-year-old Nazi youth kids are dead, gutted, all around him. Tap is playing cats in the cradle, and he turns to Eugene. This is all spoken, it's not shown. And in a dreamy voice, I think he says something like, "Your move," because he's on move 5, and you can't cats in the cradle on your own. So who cats in the cradle with him until Eugene got there? So that's kind of creepy. Tap's a psychopath. But then we learn that Tap overheard that discussion. Tap figures out some Nazis are coming, so he's like, why don't we take all our shit, camp out in the woods, and wait for him to pass. That gets nixed by Chris to get ready for the Nazis coming. Tap has Eugene go up and help him clear out the attic so they can move around better in there, and they find a pentagram, a giant fucking pentagram on the floor. Nazis, or at least Hitler, was into the occult, apparently. I'm pretty sure that's a known, at least rumor, that he was. Then they're moving this dresser. They get into the pentagram with the dresser because they're trying to move it across it, and the door slams and breaks Eugene's hand, and Eugene obviously blames Tap. Tap had nothing to do with it. Then Tap looks into the mirror of this dresser and sees the feet of a hanging girl, but when he turns around, it's gone. They start to get the radio playing after that horrificness, and it's picking up ghost talk. The house starts making noises again. Morse code pops up again, and the Morse code says, "If you leave, you die." Nazis pull up, they're about to leave, but then the house makes a loud bang because the house is an asshole, and the Nazis start coming in. They're getting shot. They're mounting their offensive. This is a big kind of fight. They throw a grenade in. Butch jumps on it, gets blown into next week. Tap is sniping. A kid ghost drowns one of the Nazis in the bathtub. A woman ghost burns one of the Nazis in the same spot that the burn mark was. One of the ghosts hangs one of the Nazis. Lots of Nazis get shot. The only good guy that gets hurt is Butch. He's still alive, but barely. He's got, I think both his arms are blown off. At least one of them is. And his face is all fucked up. So they're shooting him full of morphine, trying to keep him alive. But they have no way to feed him, so they don't know when they don't know if he's gonna make it. Let's just say it like that. They have enough morphine to kill him if they need to, but they don't know what they're gonna do. They're cleaning up the house of the bodies, and Tap must have desecrated their bodies in some way because the guys come out and they're like, "What the hell did you do?" And it just looks like they have some blood on them, but I didn't see anything more than they stripped him down. Stripping him down seems not fucked up to me. You want all the supplies you can get, and maybe if you had a bunch of gear, you could like sneak past or something. I don't know. But Tap's like, it's something you wouldn't understand. They're regrouped in the house, talking about hauntings in general. Eugene goes to check on Butch, gives him a little bit more morphine, and this is where Tap comes in, shoots up a little bit of morphine, and talks to Eugene about the Cats in the Cradle story. And this is the scene where you're like, yeah, Kyle's pretty good at being an actor. I hope he can be in more things, because this is fucked up. And he says it totally straight with the proper emotions, in my opinion. He was awake for 5 days. And by the 3rd day, he couldn't realize if he was dreaming or actually seeing things. He cut up those Nazi youths, he cut one's head off, but then it gets up, takes a piece of string out of its pocket, starts playing Cats in the Cradle. What the hell is he going to do? Not play Cats in the Cradle with the guy he just cut his head off of? So he starts playing Cats in the Cradle with him. And he is just stuck in fear and the thought that he is insane now because of this whole situation. And that's when Eugene found him. So you can tell that he thinks that he's insane and he wishes he could get back to the way he was before that incident. We also learn that he didn't remember that incident. His mind blocked it out until Eugene brought it up. So that explains the morphine. After that, probably the most intense just acting scene of the movie, I would say. I don't know, I really like that scene. We cut to Chris. He's trying to help the ghost now. He wants to set the ghost at rest at this point. But now he's getting drowned by one of the ghosts. And as he's looking up through the water, he sees 3 people with gas masks on. One has a drill. But then it flashes to a hospital really quick, and it's 3 people in a hospital, but it's so quick you can barely tell. And then he wakes up. Or, to be more correct, Eugene wakes him the fuck up. Go down in the basement looking for stuff, and the lights go out, so then Eugene has to go back up. It's just Eugene and Chris down in the basement. And Chris picks up the journal that Eugene's been reading, and he opens it, and it's empty. And then Eugene's fucking creepy for a minute. So is the journal empty, and Eugene part of this shit? I don't know. But Butch wakes up, and he's repeating, yelling, "This isn't real, this isn't real, this isn't real. It was us, it was us." And he tells everybody to remember, and then he dies. Premonition guy. They're getting ready to get the fuck out. They're on the road again, but now they're on repeat, because they're walking, and they see those refugees. And Tap looks through the scope, and the lady that he gave the coat to has the coat. And they're on repeat. They keep going through. They meet up with a couple of places they've already been to that we've already seen. They go through this city again, but it's not on fire. And then they start camping in the woods, just like the beginning of the movie. And then they talk about how they haven't gone to the bathroom in weeks. So they're realizing that they're fucked up. They think they're in hell because they're in repeat. They can't figure it out, but they know something's going on. Tap is teleported to the house, and he's getting hung. And then the rope breaks, which is terrible CGI. Holy shit, you can't just do a stunt where you make the rope break. Movies from the 80s were doing that. Just do it now. It looks better. I don't care what your excuses are. It looked like a cartoon rope. Anyway, my problem with the CGI in this movie, it actually brings the rating of this movie down for me. Because it was a pointless CGI that made it look worse. If it was something hard to do, like earlier in the movie, we see planes fly over, and they're CGI, and I don't really like it because there didn't need to be planes flying over. But at least they couldn't make planes fly over like that unless they rented World War II era planes, which I can understand wouldn't be in the budget. But a rope break stunt? What the fuck? But it breaks and he falls out of his dream onto the ground. And there's a word that's stuck in his head that was written next to it, and it's a different language and I can't remember how to say it. It's basically a curse. We learn that very shortly after this. And then they're back to the Jeep and they're like, holy fuck. And then they're back to the house and they're like, I don't think it's ever going to let us leave. But Chris wants to know where the bodies are because he wants to put them in the ground, see if that will help. He spreads flour all over and they all sit on furniture but covered in flour so they can see stuff coming if it's coming. A ghost walks up to Chris, screams in his face, and holy shit does it look terrible. A little girl in makeup with some CGI accents would have been a lot better than this whole CGI face thing that they did. Anyway, it's not scary, it's dumb looking. It's supposed to be scary, probably scare some people, but when you put a cartoon into my live action movie, it's not going to affect me. Anyway, back. Wish I wouldn't have said that twice in a row. The ghost grabs Chris and just fucking drags him off to, I'm going to say the side house, but it's probably like the servants' quarters. And when the other group gets in there, it's a distortion. Like, the screen distorts, it's red, they're blurring out, and we're seeing Afghanistan people, and it's really weird. But the ghost was dragging them to the bodies. So they start to bury the bodies. One of the bodies has the last page of the journal. It's written in Arabic. Tap gets jump scared by a woman ghost. And that word that Tap was writing is a curse that the woman put on someone. And it's cursing the men who stood by, not helping, are cursed till they die. The journal kind of rewrites itself at this point to say that, hey, burying us was the opposite of a good plan. Now Tap's in the middle of a pentagram. He's like possessed or some shit. The ghosts are back, and this is like a ghost fight. Kind of like the ghost fight in Clingers, but serious. But it is kind of weird how they're shooting ghosts, putting grenades on them, and stabbing them. It just looks funny when you try to physically hurt a ghost, but it was supposed to be serious. I mean, they don't play for laughs. It's not actually funny. It's just, I'm so messed up that it is funny to me because that's just a weird sight. They're not physically manifesting. Well, they are to the person that they're attacking, but the other people can't see them. So they're like stabbing the air. But these ghosts starts glitching out, and I mean glitching like a computer glitch, or a computer screen glitch type of glitch. Butch pops in with his arms and legs gone and yells, "This isn't real!" Then Chris wakes up in the hospital. The doctor is Billy Zane. Chris has no legs. It's a off-the-books PTSD treatment. And this is that twist. This whole movie was a simulation for his squad that was in Afghanistan. They were in a house, meeting with a contact. Tap saw some kids playing cats in the cradle when they were going up to the house, so that's the cats in the cradle story. Later on in this flashback, they end up being killed. It's bloody and gross. Or it's disturbing because it's kids, and it's only bloody and gross because they're kids. The family are helping the American soldiers, but then the bad guys come and they have to hide in the walls. But the bad guys know that this family is conspiring with the American army, and the whole group, except for the commander, who wasn't part of the beginning of the movie, this is where he's introduced, tells them to shut up and don't do anything. And this group of people, the squad that we've been following, all want to help. They're getting ready to help this family, but then another platoon come, and then they're like, fuck, there's no way we can take out all of these people. The family starts cursing the soldiers. The soldiers are they're physically upset that they can't help. And the soldiers go to leave. The woman of the family, the wife, has a bomb that gets shown earlier and just blows the whole squad up. That's the curse. And the reason that the cliched stuff gets a pass, kind of, is because when this treatment is, they used World War II because that was the one that reaches to, like the band of brothers to get them through what they've gone through. And this treatment subconsciously takes all that stuff and plays it in like a World War II setting because they found that it was the best. The problem is the machine has some issue that makes it a horror movie. Literally the character in it's like, was it programmed to make it a horror movie? Because that's what it did. So if the computer's going off horror movies, that makes sense that it would be cliched like that. So that's the kind of pass I'm giving it. But he goes back under and he's like, I'm going to figure this shit out. Wakes up again, sees the guy in the shadows again, and says, what do you want? And then the movie ends. That whole scene in the hospital, futuristic, fucking shitty CGI. But that's the end of the movie. I glossed over the end part, mainly because I didn't really like... I guess the reason I didn't like it is because the soldiers were all good guys, and they wanted to help, and the family should have known that if shit goes down, shit goes down. I understand that you're upset that your whole family just died, lady, but you knew the risks when you conspired with the American soldiers, so why are you cursing them and blowing them up? And then I can understand that they would have PTSD about this, and he just might be remembering it wrong, but how are you going to remember a chick cursing at you and blowing you up with a bomb? Like, the rest of the group, like, Tap has no jaw, Butch has no arms and legs, and half his face is burned like he was when he jumped on the grenade. It's like everybody's all fucked up. Chris is the only one that woke up. All he's missing is his legs. He's got his arms. All he's missing is his legs. Like, that's not horrific. But compared to the other guys, if Kyle's alive, he's going to have to eat through a tube the rest of his life because he got his bottom jaw blown off. He doesn't even have top teeth. That's how much of his face got blown off. It's a cool idea. Take the subconscious brainwaves, play them in a simulation to work out your problems until you can come to terms with them so you have worked through it. So I like the concept. It's a great concept. And inside the simulation was good. And if a computer is doing it, it makes sense that it would be by the books and all of that stuff's just seeping in. So after I thought about it 3 times now, because I watched it the first time, watched it to take notes, and now I'm talking about it, I think I'll bump up my rating to, it was good. You should watch it. It's worth a watch. The way my brother was talking about it, I thought it was going to be a giant pile, and it turned out to be all right. The more I thought about it, the more I liked it. So there's that. Next week, we're going to change up the format a little bit. Not for you guys. It's my format. I'd like to do this movie where I watch a movie I've never seen before and do an episode on it. This time, we're going to do a movie that I've seen only once a while back, and I really want to talk about it. So we're going to do it for next week. It's called Cold Skin. This movie... Well, Cold Skin is kind of like The Lighthouse, but creature feature version instead of psychological horror. And if you haven't seen The Lighthouse, go watch The Lighthouse. I'm not doing a review on The Lighthouse. There is too much psychological stuff going on in there that can be interpreted so many different ways that I think you should all watch it, but I'm not prepared, or I don't have the skills at the moment to tackle that movie. I know we're like 16 episodes into this, but a movie like that's going to need me to have a lot more experience with being able to talk about movies and explain what I'm saying yet. So I probably just won't ever do it because I'm going to watch it again before I get to that point anyways, because it was a good movie. So, Cold Skin's next. It came out before The Lighthouse. It's a lower budget movie, but man, it's a good one. I liked it. It's one of those weird ones that I'm just like, yep, this is in my wheelhouse. We'll get to talk about fun stuff in that one. Anyway, thanks for listening. This has been Brian from Nausea Reviews. Hopefully everybody has a good week. I'll talk at you next Sunday. Bye, everyone.